Hi everyone, my name is Jarek from Genius Gecko and welcome to the third video in which I will be presenting to you structure. If you haven't seen two previous videos, I encourage you to go and watch them as they will be helpful in understanding this one. In the previous videos we focused on basic features of structure. We focused on Gantt and resource management, which are basically features that are oriented more towards waterfall planning. In this video, we're gonna talk a bit more about what structure offers for agile planning. Let's start with addressing elephant in the rooms. Why should we use structure for agile planning if we can use normal Jira boards, right? So over here we have a backlog of tasks. We can have multiple sprints to which we can assign tasks and do the planning. And everything's well if you have really teams that are not working with each other. If there are dependencies between multiple teams and these teams are working on different Jira boards, it's starting to get a bit tricky because you do not really see over here what are the dependencies or what are the tasks dependent on this one, for example. So if you move it from sprint 1 to sprint 2, you do not know what will be the impact on the work done by other teams. You do not even see what will be impact on work done by this team because maybe there is task, maybe this task PPS 17 is actually dependent on this one. So if you're moving this to the next sprint, you won't be able to do the other one. So these are the situations where this planning on Jira boards can be a bit tricky. So let's get back to structure and see how it addresses this issue. So I enabled the Gantt chart in the structure over here on the right side, and I added sprint column so we can actually see to which sprint tasks are assigned, because I'm sure you know that if we are assigning tasks to the sprint in Jira, it actually fills the sprint field with the value, with the name of the sprint. So over here we can see that there are a lot of tasks and they are assigned to different sprints. Some of these sprints are from different boards. So yeah, these tasks are coming from multiple boards. And on the Gantt chart, you already can see that there are dependencies. And yeah, basically when you will be changing sprint value over here, let's say that I'll click, I could pick any other sprint. I would see what are the dependencies of this on this task. And this one actually has nothing, but in the case of this one, I could check what are the dependent tasks and what will be impacted. Are these tasks planned already, or they are still not yet planned? So we have maybe a bit more room to change stuff. So this is first and major benefit of using structure in agile planning. You have much clearer view of dependencies, even if they are coming from multiple teams, multiple boards, multiple Jira projects. Okay, now you can see that I filtered out just to see two tasks. It will just make showing examples a bit easier. So just visualizing the dependencies between the tasks is very nice feature and very welcome, but that's not really sufficient. It would still take a lot of effort to do the planning if structure would offer just visualizing dependencies. But it offers more, so let's have a look. We have two tasks at the moment assigned, both of them to the same sprint. But you can see that on the timeline over here, yeah, they are not planned on the same period of time. So this means that at least one of them is not in the same place where actually sprint takes place. But we can change this in the settings. So if we go over here to in the Gantt settings to scheduling section, and we have over here, we need to enable at least two checkboxes, preferably free. So allow manual scheduling, use sprints for manual scheduling, and over here I also like to prefer sprints over manual start and finish dates. So we will save this one, and you will see that in the moment sprints will appear, or time boxes for the sprints will appear here at the top exactly. And you see that because we selected this setting to prefer sprint over manual scheduling, now these tasks were actually planned for the same period of time as the sprints that these tasks were assigned to, right? So now we actually can, just by changing the sprint value, we'll do that now, change where on the timeline the task is displayed. So let me find this sprint. Yep, save. And you will see that in a moment this box will be updated, and here it is. So it's reflected on the timeline that it perfectly overlaps the start and end date of a sprint. So in both cases, the start and end date of a task is the same as the start and end date of a sprint to which the task is assigned. So this already allows us to simplify the work, because if you will reassign the task from one sprint to the other, you do not have to go back over here and change it also on the timeline. It will happen automatically. But what if the task was not reassigned to the other sprint, but was actually pushed by the other task? So basically there was dependency and the task was pushed from one place on the timeline to the other. So you can see that if the task moves on the timeline, it actually can be reassigned from one sprint to the other. This task is actually a subtask, so it's dependent on the parent task. Let's move this one. So we'll move it back to sprint 1. It doesn't have to match perfectly, but yeah, if you'll see that the sprint at the top is highlighted, then it says that structure understands that this task should be assigned to this sprint. So I will move it over here, and I would expect this task to be assigned to sprint 1. Exactly, it was reassigned over here, and it matches on the timeline exactly the start and end date of a sprint. If I would move it so that it's kind of 2 sprints are highlighted, structure will ask me to pick a proper sprint. I will just ignore that for now. Right, so we see already that I think that guys from Structure had it figured out pretty well already. So we have perfect synchronization of a timeline with the value of the sprint. If we change something either in the sprint field or on the timeline, these two informations are synchronized. And if there are dependencies, we will see them over here and we'll be able to take action. In some cases, even Structure will take action for us. But now, for a lot of people, this view or this way of planning sprints is not very intuitive or convenient. So basically, not all tasks from a given sprint are in the same place. We have some tasks from sprint 1 over here, some over here. Of course, we could do the sorting, we could do the filtering, but all of that is some additional actions that we need to take. So this works well for sprint planning, but it could work better. Fortunately, Structure offered a third pretty new add-on that is focused just on that, just on agile planning. And this add-on is called Structure Cross-Team PI Planner. So let's dive into this one. So let's open Cross-Team PI Planner. And by the way, this app is in early access. So although we'll be discussing it here, I think it's very valuable. You need to keep this in mind. It still may have some slight hiccups. And yeah, it's better just to test it before starting using it and then jumping right in. Okay, so over here we can create a new board. We won't be covering everything in depth over here. We'll focus on agile planning, but I will show you some other options. So we'll return to the creation of a new board later. For now, I will open one of a board that I have already created, Sprint Team. And what you can see over here is on the right side, the backlog. So basically all the issues, that still require planning. You can see that over here, these issues are actually grouped under different teams. So basically each team has its own board, and each board contains its own backlog, right? So these are divided over here. On the left side, the main part of the screen, we have different sprints in the columns, and in the swim lanes, we have teams, right? So for each team, we can do the planning for upcoming sprint or even several upcoming sprints. And what is very nice, what's main advantage over standard Jira board is that here we see dependencies. So we see dependencies both within the tasks from the same team. So over here, for example, you can see red dependency, and that is because task PPS1 was planned in sprint 2 and PPS 15 in sprint 1, despite the fact that there is dependency saying that this one has to be done first and this one later. So it already highlights that there is some problem with planning over here. And if there would be dependencies with a task from different teams, you can see over here I have other team and this SPA team. You can see dependency crossing two teams. So this allows us to do the planning with more information, being more aware what will be the impact of the changes that we're doing. And by the way, all of this is synchronized with sprint field. So basically, if you reassign sprint over here, the sprint field in Jira updates, and this also means that if configuration is right in Structure Gantt, you will see this task moving on the timeline. So it's really, really well thought. Okay, let's enter the configuration of this board and see what can we set over here. Yeah, so here we have name and owner, sprints. Over here we see what is the length of a sprint and how many sprints we want to have to display. In dependencies, we just decide what is the link between the issue that structure will treat as dependency. And most interesting part over here, you can define the teams, and for each team you can select which Jira board this team is using, and you can also decide which sprints from this board will be mapped to separate columns from on our board. So you can see that each team could have different boards selected, but there are also cases where two or more teams are using the same boards, but how we distinguish who does what is by having different sprint names. So each team has their own set of sprints. So you could also use the same board for multiple teams, but map different sprints to our columns. Yeah, and we can over here set some additional information, like filter out some of the issues, decide what fields should be used as estimate, and so on. So let's save it and go back to the board, and you already can see that it gives us way more flexibility. Not only it shows us all the dependencies between teams, between sprints, but it also allows us to set up different configuration. One team is using their own board, it's okay, we can configure that. 5 other teams are using the same board, it's also possible. So that's very, very convenient, very flexible, and nice in general. Okay, we're back again at the board. Let's talk a bit about, basically some more information, or what can we do here. So let's start with planning. As I mentioned, on the right side we have a backlog. We can just simply drag and drop tasks from the backlog into particular sprint. So that's pretty straightforward. What's nice is that we can do the filtering here, or either text filtering or JQL filtering. So for example, if you want to plan tasks that have the highest priority first, you can just enter the priority highest over here. Only the tasks with this priority will be displayed. It is especially useful if you have really large environment with a lot of tasks. There are times when there are hundreds of tasks to be planned, and it's kind of hard to move around them and find the right one. but filtering can like select or limit the amount of tasks you have over here and allow you to focus on the most important one first. Here at the top, we have some filtering options, so we can display all teams or just specific one, the ones that we are interested in at the moment. And we can also display tasks that have, or basically dependencies, specific ones. So if we already did the planning and most of the things is okay, yeah, maybe we do not want to see everything. There can be really a lot of arrows going over here, kind of a clouding information. But after initial plan, we can say, okay, so now let's look only at conflicts and only dependencies where we did something wrong in the planning, or this is how structure understands it, are displayed. So we can focus only on these issues and maybe replan this to other sprints. What else? Over here at the top, you may remember that in the configuration of this board, we've picked that story points should be our estimate. So over here we see how many story points are assigned for this particular, for each sprint basically, but we do not see what is the upper limit. This is because we did not set this yet. So let's get back to configuration, teams, and this is the last information that we omitted. So you can see that for each team separately, this can be set if one team has just 2 team members and the other one has 8 of them. Yeah, we can set this value separately for each team. The thing that I would like to see here, and that is not yet available, is to be able to set separately for each particular sprint, because there are holiday seasons, for example, when part of the people takes time off and our velocity is sure to fall. That feature is not yet here, but yeah, I hope in future it will appear. So now you can see that, for example, here in the sprint 1, we assigned 23 story points out of 10 that our team is capable of doing. So we're in red here, while in the other places we are not highlighted as we are well under our limit. So using that, we can basically monitor what is allocation of our teams. Are we over allocating them, or do they still have room to take in more work? Okay, so that will cover it when it comes to these, let's say, agile planning, sprint planning. I will touch on one other thing. So because this add-on gives us some other possibilities to set up boards. So over here, we are obviously focused on sprint planning. So in the columns, we have sprints. But there are other ways to do around. And when we will get back actually to this add-on, you will see that when we will be creating the board, there are multiple ways or multiple types of a board. Basically, I think that the custom board is the most robust, but they are kind of similar. I will just give you examples so you can understand what it can be used for. So let me select the project based on which this 8.2. Yep, this one. Yeah, I can either select a project or Jira or set Jira filter. And now I'm deciding what will be our columns. Last time it was sprints. But for example, we may want to have a look at, okay, what tasks are assigned to specific fixed versions or specific components. Or maybe we want to have issues grouped by assignee. All that can be done. So let me pick fixed versions. Although, honestly, I'm not sure how many fixed versions I have in this project. Yeah, so you can see that I can basically add a lot of, multiple columns and assign what kind of values should be in these columns. What is more, there can be more than one value mapped. So basically all issues from fixed version with assigned fixed version 2 and fixed version not closed will be put into this column. Yep, let's set the last one. Next. Yeah, we can do the grouping, so basically swim lanes. I will do the grouping by assignee, let's say. I will skip the rest for a moment. I just want you to see how it will look like and what kind of information you can gather from this. Yeah, so basically you can see that as a swim lanes, we have assignees. So because this is what we've set in the nearly last step, I think. As a columns, we have fixed version, where two fixed versions were mapped over here. So yeah, if I would pick the estimates, if I would pick the upper limit for estimates, you would basically see how much work for each person for each fixed version is assigned. Not sure if this is a case that could be valid for anyone, that would bring additional information and some value, but you can see that there is flexibility and there are possibilities. You could, for example, check or create grouping by or columns based on components and see how much work is put into each component, and so on and so on. All of this still allows us to track dependencies, check what are the estimates and how they sum up. So yeah, I think that that kind of flexibility gives us a lot of possibilities and can be very useful. This is actually a thing that in the past was not addressed, especially when it comes to this agile planning with sprints. So I'm really happy to see that they are working on this next add-on that brings these features in. Okay, I hope you liked this video. That will be all, and yeah, thanks for sticking up with me, and hear you next time. We're working with Structure and other project management tools in Jira every day. If you want to learn more about this tool, reach out to us and we will schedule a free session. We provide consulting, trainings, and implementation services for Structure. Throughout the years, we've developed a process that guarantees a success and adoption of new tools.